This is Bang Goes the Theory. This week I look into the science of smell.
Oh, that's unbelievable. That definitely smells of rotten eggs.
Dallas goes looking for aliens.
Every year, over 50,000 tons of extraterrestrial matter rains down from space to the Earth. Now, that's a lot of stuff.
And Jem drives to Manchester in a coffee-powered car.
I'm not going to be drinking it. I'm going to be using that to convert it into flammable gas.
That's Bang Goes the Theory, putting science to the test.
First up tonight, our sense of smell.
It's one of our body's most important and basic functions, but do we know exactly how it works? I'm going to find out. This nose belongs to Jess. Jess is a 2-year-old Springer Spaniel who's rumoured to be one of the best sniffers in the business. How good is she really though, Mandy?
Oh, she's brilliant. She never fails to find.
Okay, well, we're going to put that to the test today because in this flask, I've got a chemical called cis-3-hexanol. It might sound a little bit sinister, but actually, when you smell it... What does that smell of, Mandy?
Oh, like fresh grass.
Exactly. This is a chemical you can make in the lab that smells exactly like fresh cut grass. In fact, if a perfume or a cleaning product smells of the great outdoors, it's likely to have this in it. So here's the test. In my pocket, I've got 2 handkerchiefs soaked in this chemical. One I'm going to keep for myself in my back pocket, and the other I'm going to give to Mandy to introduce to Jess to see if Jess can search me out.
Jess should be able to do this because of her incredible nose, inside of which are about 220 million smell receptors that connect to the brain. Humans only have 5 million receptors, but they work in much the same way as Jess's.
But the question is, what's going on in that fabulous nose of hers? How can a chemical like this trigger the smell of fresh-cut grass?
It all comes down to the molecules, the atoms bonded together that the liquid is made up of. Amazingly, almost all the molecules we can smell, like our cis-3-hexanol, contain just a handful of elements.
These 5, in fact. We've got carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and that yellow one at the end there is sulfur. Now, these elements can combine into any number of complex molecules, giving you an incredible amount of different smells. Everything from your morning coffee to your favorite perfume.
Each time Jess breathes in air, she's also picking up a few individual molecules of cis-3-hexanol that are coming off the hanky in my back pocket.
And this is what one of these molecules looks like. We've got 6 carbon atoms down the center, the black ones, surrounded by lots of hydrogen atoms, the white bits, and here, this red one here, is the 1 oxygen atom.
As Jess sucks air into her nose, individual cis-3-hexanol molecules hit a smell receptor. She smells that grass smell and knows she's on track to find me.
But why is it that every time one of the molecules hits the back of Jess's nose, it's translated into the smell of fresh-cut grass and not some other smell? Well, currently the most widely held theory is that it's all got to do with shape. The idea is that the molecule has to be the right shape for a smell receptor, a bit like a key fitting into a lock. So imagine this lock is the receptor, and this part of the key is the right bit of the molecule that will slot in, triggering a signal to the brain that says fresh cut grass every time. And wait. Now, according to the molecular shape theory, what's happening in Jess's nose is that the 6,3-hexenol molecules are slotting in to the correct receptors, which in turn send a signal to the brain specific to that shape and therefore that particular smell. So hopefully Jess is following that trail of molecules all the way to this room. That's Jess. That's Jess scratching on the door. Oh. What have you got? I can't believe how quick that was. Good girl. That is amazing.
I love the smell of tennis balls in the morning.
Very deep.
Now it is 25 years since a very special DeLorean DMC-12 went back to the future. I think it's an anniversary worth celebrating. Unfortunately, I can't quite crack time travel, but a car that's powered by junk, that's a different story. Back in 1989, I saw Back to the Future 2. There, the mad professor had somehow managed to get his car to run on rubbish. Fantastic plan, but surely something that could never, ever happen. Until now, maybe. Because 20 years later, time travel is still out of the question, but running a car on rubbish might just happen. Now, here's the basics. Normal car, squirt a bit of petrol into a cylinder, then a spark, makes an explosion. Whoa! A spark makes a fairly big explosion. The explosion's powerful enough to drive the piston up that starts turning the engine, that starts turning the wheels, and the car goes forwards. But it doesn't have to be petrol. This is the thing. Anything that makes a clean explosion in there can drive a car. Have a look at this. If you take wood shavings, like these, put them in a confined space, and then get it very hot. And squeeze that end into there. That's up to temperature. Now, this is a process called gasification. The gas coming off there should be flammable.
What's happening is that when heated in this way, the wood breaks down to produce carbon monoxide and hydrogen.
Now, if I feed that gas into my cylinder, there it goes, you see it going in, drop the piston, get ready with the spark, 3, 2, 1. Well, that works, totally works. So, in theory, wood gas will drive a piston, but can we scale it up enough to drive a car?
Gasification is not a new idea. During World War II, due to petrol shortages, thousands of cars ran on the gas from smouldering wood.
But nowadays the environment is the worry, and chopping down trees might not be the answer. So I've been on the hunt for a substance that's like wood, but is actually a complete waste product. And after numerous burn tests, I think I found our perfect substitute. Yup, coffee. I'm going to drive my car on used coffee grounds, stuff that's usually just dumped in the bin. And how's that possible? Well, it turns out that used coffee grounds actually give as good, if not better, gas than wood. But to burn efficiently in a gasifier, like a giant version of my kettle, they need to be very dry and ideally made into these pellets. Now, a massive handful of these pellets should get me about 2 miles. So that's about 66 EPN, espressos per mile.
Or the dregs of 41 espressos per kilometre. And if the fuel choice wasn't challenging enough, this is what I'm making the gasifier with. A pile of scrap metal. And this is what it's powering. A beautiful 1988 Volkswagen Scirocco, which looks like the Back to the Future car if you squint. Time to cut, shut, weld and grind, persuading our second-hand steel into its new role as a mobile gas production plant. We need a system both small enough to mount on the car and safe enough for other road users, because we're playing with explosive and poisonous gases.
lot of blood, sweat and deafened ears have gone into this. Our coffee-powered car. Now, we've still got the same 1980s boy racer special, but we've added a bit. All that scrap steel we had is now a system that converts waste into useful fuel. This is the key to the operation, this old propane bottle. Normally, when you burn wood-like substances, you get a mixture of carbon dioxide and steam given off. But this reduces those gases to the highly flammable carbon monoxide and hydrogen. But when it leaves, it's in a fairly dirty, wet state, and we need to clean it up before we feed it into the engine. First, we send it into here. There, the gas is flung round so fast that all soot particles get whizzed off to the edge and drop out, a bit like a kind of high-temperature cyclone vacuum cleaner. Then it goes there, into that radiator, where the gas is cooled down and we condense out some of the water vapour. We then come out of the radiator into the fine filter, where we remove even more of the smoke and tars. Then, it's down this pipe on the way to the engine. I've not got the engine running, so I've got a fan sucking the smoke through. And if this lights, I think we're in business. Look at that! It's like an Olympic torch.
It's this mix of carbon monoxide and hydrogen that's going to power me 210 miles from London to Manchester.
Oh, that was such a good build. I love that. Seriously, seriously. Awesome.
Thing is,
awesome.
I absolutely loved making that car, but at the moment it's only ever driven around the car park, and I've got to take it from London to Manchester.
Easy.
Ooh.
I have no idea what's going
There's
to happen.
loads of coffee shops en route to refuel. You'll be fine.
You'll be grand.
No problem.
I cannot wait to see how that pans out. First up, though, it's more street science from our very own Dr. Jan, who's decided to make lots of people happy and dish out free glasses of wine.
You might have noticed that when you have a cold and you can't smell anything, you can't taste very much either. So, do you mind holding your nose? And I just want you to tell me what do you think it is.
Looks like proper gunk, that.
It's fine. It's perfectly innocuous stuff, honest.
Rhubarb.
Apple.
I wouldn't know.
It's actually celery.
Well, yeah, I put it green, wasn't it?
So our sense of taste and smell are intimately linked, but that's not the end of the story. I've got 2 bottles of wine here, one red, one white. They're just ordinary wine, nothing special from the supermarket. If I put a blindfold on people, will they even be able to tell which is red and which is white? So do you prefer red or white?
White, please.
I like both.
I'm going to give you 2 glasses, and it could be that they're both white, or both red, or one white and one red.
Right.
Okay? And you've just got to tell me what colour you think each glass is.
Right, okay.
But you've got to do it blindfold.
Oh, it's different.
So, pick your blindfold.
Looks like a sexy garter.
I'll be the chick.
Let's go for it.
Right.
Okay.
So here you go. Here's 2 glasses. Feel free to taste them. Tell me what you think.
Right, I'm driving.
Can we have more than a sip?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to have as much as you like. It turns out that we use our eyes to sense flavour. What something looks like can be just as important as its taste or smell. All that information is brought together to come up with an overall sensation, and it's done in a bit of the brain just behind the eyes here, called the orbitofrontal cortex. So you tell me what you think.
I think that's a white wine.
I think that's red and that's white.
That's white and that's red.
That one's the white one.
Yeah, okay. How about the other one?
They're both red.
Very good.
I still think that's the red and that's the white.
Right, okay, it's all right, there you go.
They're both
No way. Both red.
How interesting.
We've been done. That one tasted white.
It's weird, isn't it? So try it again now that you know what flavour it is.
Tastes darker now. It does, actually.
Red.
Red. Yeah.
Why is that?
What happens is that over time you build up an association between what something looks like and its taste. So the sight of something becomes integral to its flavour. To what
Which a
something
lot
is.
of people do with food as well. If the food doesn't look very nice, they'll think it tastes horrible.
Yeah.
I suppose this was white wine with a bit of red dye in it.
Yes, that sort of experiment has been done, even on expert wine tasters.
Okay.
And because they're so used to tasting wine, then their association between its colour and its taste has become particularly strong. And so if you give them white wine but you put red colour in it, they can get quite misled.
What marvellous things they do in the name of science.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Hey, now listen, there's a lot of interest at the moment about the possibilities of there being life elsewhere in the universe, and research into that sort of stuff is helping us understand how life might have started here on Earth. So my quest to get to the bottom of all this starts with an experiment that took place in Chicago in 1952, and this is a reconstruction of it. It's the classic Stanley Miller-Harold Urey experiment, and essentially what it is a closed system designed to replicate the conditions on Earth several billion years ago. So up here we've got our atmosphere, and it's filled with basic gases like hydrogen, methane and ammonia, very different of course to the atmosphere we've got now. Down here, bubbling away, you've got a primitive ocean creating water vapour. The whole lot mixes here, and what they did was they actually put a spark through the whole lot using these two electrodes to simulate lightning, and then they went away for a week to see what happened. So they came back after a week and had a little look inside, and what they found was this rather unpleasant, brown, sticky, smelly stuff. But when they analysed it, they found it was full of chemicals called amino acids. Now, not life itself, but certainly part of the building blocks that can make life possible. This gunk, made from simple gases and a spark of electricity, was full of complex chemicals which could go on to make life. Indeed, for all its flaws, the Miller-Urey experiment suggested we might be getting close to learning how we all began. And that led others to speculate about another controversial idea. If the basic chemicals you need for life could be created here on Earth, then could they have been created elsewhere in the universe? That wasn't quite as mad as it may seem. We're fairly sure there are planets not too different from Earth elsewhere in the universe. Could the building blocks of life have been carried from one of them? Or could it even have been formed in the depths of space itself? Every year, over 50,000 tons of extraterrestrial matter rains down from space to the Earth. Now, that's a lot of stuff. In fact, it's about twice the mass of your average aircraft carrier. Most of it is in the form of dust, but every once in a while, something a little bit more substantial lands. For instance, in 1969, a meteorite fell to the Earth in southern Australia called the Murchison meteorite, and that weighed over 100 kilograms. That's more than I weigh. Now, if you're hoping to find the building blocks of life in space, looking at meteorites like Murchison might be a good place to start. So, a handful of scientists here at Imperial College in London have recently been analysing meteorites like Murchison with startling results. This is an actual fragment of meteorite that fell from space to Earth. It's over 4.5 billion years old, untouched by human hand. This is Zita Martin from Imperial College. Now, you're an astrobiologist, yes, and it's your job to actually analyse these and find out what kind of molecules are present. Exactly. Can we sort of do that now?
Of course.
This is a mass spectrometer, a fantastic bit of kit that can analyse the chemicals within our meteorites with incredible accuracy. OK, so here are our results. So if I just scroll down, what are we actually seeing here?
We're seeing a molecule called uracil, which is a molecule present in our genetic material.
Yes.
So this is really exciting results.
It's a hugely significant find. Uracil is one of life's basic building blocks, and this one seemed to come from outer space, making it controversial stuff. So controversial that many scientists argue that the results might be inaccurate because the meteorite could have been contaminated by life on Earth. But for the first time, Zita's results proved categorically that those chemicals were of extraterrestrial origin. Normally, uracil is mainly built from the element carbon-12, but the uracil in the Murchison meteorite contained a very high ratio of carbon-13, incredibly rare on Earth, but common in space.
So when we look to our results, we know that we have a much bigger ratio of carbon-13 over 12, and therefore this molecule, the uracil, can only be formed in outer space, and it's not contamination.
So there's absolutely no way that could be synthesized on Earth?
No.
This is such an important thing. How did it make you feel when you discovered it?
Well, it was very, very exciting news and discovery, and we were the first ones really proving that components of our genetic material were present already in our early solar system. So that's really big news and exciting and everything.
Well, that's pretty amazing. So I guess the kind of million-dollar question: life here on Earth, did we sort of come from space?
Well,
or is that too far?
Well, you can't say that. We're not saying that meteorites brought life itself. We're just saying it brought the building blocks of life.
So, are we aliens? Well, these are the facts. Thanks to Zita and her team, incredibly, we now know the most basic building blocks of life exist in space, and over the years have definitely come to Earth from space. And for me, that's almost as exciting.
So if the building blocks for all life on Earth came from outer space, did those same building blocks lead to life on other planets? I need to know more, Dallas Campbell.
I need to know. I intend to find out.
Good.
I'm going to make it my mission to find out.
I need to build one of those life-making rigs. They are simply awesome.
They look good.
They do. Anyway, now it's time to go back to the future and my junk-fueled car. London to Manchester, 200 miles in a 1980s vehicle converted to run on coffee. Ambitious is an understatement.
Woke up early this morning. Love me
It's
now.
4:30 in the morning, time to wake up and smell the coffee. But this time, I'm not going to be drinking it. I'm going to be using that to convert it into flammable gas that hopefully will get this car 210 miles from BBC Television Centre to Manchester. It's London in the middle of the night. It's spookily quiet, and I quite like it that way, because this thing's not exactly straightforward to drive. Because what you're doing is when you're driving, you're also running a gas plant at the same time. I'd set off early because I wanted to make sure I'd be at the Science Festival in Manchester by 3 p.m. Dallas and Liz were already there, having sensibly chosen the train. It was a relief to get onto the motorway, where I wouldn't have to constantly fight to match the varying power demands of the engine to the production rate of my gas plant.
This is it's 65 miles an hour now. This is as good as it gets. Well, hopefully it might even get better.
But 30 miles up the road, we had to pull over. Our prototype coffee-powered car had got the jitters. Fortunately, it was just out of fuel. And back on the road, it looked like with enough coffee, anything was possible. But there was one thing I had no control over.
There are still long delays on the M1 northbound up towards junction 15, where that closure is in place for recovery of that lorry and car. Delays are now reportedly an hour and a half.
This is kind of the last thing I need. M1 was looking brilliant, moving along nicely, and then we've hit this heavy traffic. Now, in a coffee-powered car, that's not what you want at all, because there's no air flowing up through the radiator now, so things are going to get overheated. I'm going to go burning through fuel that I don't want to burn through, and I don't even know when this traffic's going to finish. Dallas Campbell. Dallas?
Hey, Jem. How's it going?
It's been really amazingly good.
Yeah.
Until about a couple of miles back, and now the motorway is completely snarled up, and it's just rubbish.
You should get here soon, because the hotel's amazing and great.
That's the kind of motivation I need.
Amazing. Oh, I've got to get his room service here.
After finally escaping the traffic, the team and I had to service the coffee conversion kit in the boot. We'd have to do this every 60 miles. Each service would eat up precious time, but if we didn't do it, we'd never get to Manchester. At every stop, we'd have to drain off water, replace the filter, fill up with new coffee, and deal with the red-hot coals.
It's an act of slight desperation, but In order to make sure this thing works properly, you have to clean the ash out periodically. Otherwise, it sort of chokes it and you can't get the gas that you're producing through and into the engine.
I just hoped our cappuccino would become an espresso, because I still had another 130 miles to go.
Right, okay, so he should be here in 2 hours if everything's going well, right?
I think he should be here now.
The car was back on form, but it wasn't our day. Another traffic incident had closed the M6, so we had to take the A roads. Unfortunately, so did everyone else.
It's always a relief when the police go past and don't do anything.
Oh, it's still an answering machine.
Calling is unable to take your call. Please leave your message after the tone.
We've made it from London so far, and we're just going up to Manchester. Thank you, we're going to need... Oh, no!
It was nice to make new friends, but it was proving almost impossible to match the gas production rate to the car's speed. Manchester on time was now a distant memory.
Traffic is still struggling on the A50 as you head east through Stoke. A lorry's broken down. There's an oil spillage on the carriageway as well between the D road and the Blurton road, causing us a problem. Lane's still blocked off just by Britannia Station.
When it's free, this thing runs like an absolute dream. It's just, in traffic like this, overheats. It's not nice. But if there's another hill like that in stop-start traffic like this, I fear we could burn something out.
And sure enough... Now, with the fire extinguished, victory was in our sight.
This is Manchester. This is where we were aiming for. And this is a coffee-powered car. There's no way this had any right to make it the last thing. Oh. And there's probably 1 cup of coffee left in this thing.
Are you all right? Are you all right?
Yeah, it's been incredible.
Listen, we got to go. This is the end of the show.
So proud of him, though. We will see you soon.
See you
Take care.
soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, God.